National Signing Day tomorrow. National recruiting analyst for Rivals.com, Mike Farrell, back on the program. How did Ole Miss get so good at recruiting here, Mike, judging by some of these kids who are going there?
You know, I get that question a lot. I think Hugh Freeze is a tremendous recruiter. He's very active. He gets very involved with the kids. And, you know, but the job they've done, you know, pulling the number one wide receiver in the country from Illinois, they're obviously expected to get Robert Kimdichie, the number one player in the country. I think Kimdichie has a lot to do with it. He's a defensive end from Georgia, and he's been silently committed, at least in the minds of a lot of people, for a long time. And kids gravitate towards the number one player. We've seen this before, but Ole Miss, they won 7 games last year, 2 the year before. It is really a great job by Hugh Freeze.
Notre Dame capitalizing on their successful run?
They are. I think they are in Texas A&M. I think those are the 2 teams in our top 10 rankings that have really capitalized on amazing seasons. Notre Dame always finishes pretty high in recruiting. You know, they do well nationally. A&M always finishes in around the 15 range, but both of them are in the top 8 right now. And I think you do get a boost from an undefeated season, even if you lose in the BCS championship game to essentially the NFL team of college football in Alabama. You definitely see a boost for that. And the Johnny football factor at Texas A&M has really driven them up the rankings.
But you're looking at a Heisman Trophy winner, and you're also looking at Notre Dame. So if you're going to say what would help recruiting more, for somebody to want to go on and play with the Heisman Trophy winner, or, you know, Notre Dame going to a national title game?
Notre Dame. You know, Notre Dame gets so much media attention. Heisman Trophy winners get a lot of media attention, but Texas A&M is still not Notre Dame when it comes to tradition. Everything Notre Dame does is scrutinized, and everything they do well is publicized. So I think when Notre Dame has a season like they did this past year, they're definitely going to get a boost from it. I'll give you an example. Greg Bryant is a running back from Florida, 5-star kid, used to be committed to Oklahoma, was looking at SEC schools. Notre Dame recruited him for a week, and he decided to commit there. And that would not have happened had they not had the season they had.
What about USC?
USC's fading a little bit. I mean, their recruiting has been similar to their season. They started off number 1 class in the country. They started off this season as the preseason number 1, the team that was going to break the SEC streak of BCS championships. Then the season kind of went down the tubes. Then there was the whole bowl game incident. And a lackluster performance in the bowl game. And recruiting's taken a hit, too. They lost the 5-star cornerback actually this morning from Tennessee, had been committed to them since the spring. So they're still at number 8, still a good class, small numbers, but the momentum has not been there at all.
Lane Kiffin's reputation as a recruiter is what?
You know, he's a good recruiter. He's got a great staff around him. Everywhere he's gone, you know, Tennessee and now USC, he's had Ed Orgeron on his staff. And you know, Ed Orgeron, the former Ole Miss head coach, is one of the most infectious recruiters out there. He's got T. Martin, obviously, who led Tennessee to their national championship and is a great recruiter. So he's got guys around him. But Kiffin is regarded as one of the top head coaching recruiters. I wouldn't put him in the top 3 or 4, but he's up there. He does a good job in living rooms.
Who is number 1 at closing?
You know, I'm going to say Urban Meyer, but I'm going to say 1B is Nick Saban. They're going to have to rename signing day, you know, the Nick Saban draft day, because, you know, they're going to win it this year. Again, it looks like that's 4 out of 5 years they're going to win the national recruiting title. And that's just never been done before. Pete Carroll was on a run like that in the mid-2000s. Urban Meyer at Florida was on a run like that with Tim Tebow, but nothing like Nick Saban. But Nick's not, you know, the warm and fuzzy guy in the living rooms, whereas Urban Meyer can sell you anything.
He's Mike Farrell from Rivals.com joining us, Dan Patrick Show. Well, that's what I'm wondering here, because having interviewed Nick Saban, I don't know if he's any different when he gets in the room to sell some kid's parents or the kid himself to go to Alabama. How much does he need to sell to get that kid to commit?
You still need to sell. The thing they're having a problem with a little bit is, and it's not a problem, but their roster is so loaded. I mean, it's not like this is a team that won a national championship and they're losing everybody. They got a lot of talented guys coming back, so you got to sell the kids. You know, you're going to have an opportunity to play here, even though we've got a boatload of NFL first-rounders sitting at your position. But I will tell you this, you know, if you want an opportunity to go on to win a national championship and go on to the NFL, if Nick Saban were in your living room, Dan, you would commit to Alabama.
The effects of Chip Kelly leaving Oregon.
It hurts. Even though they hired from within and they're going to keep everything the same, the rumors hurt. Oregon had a great season. They should be in the top 20 in recruiting. They're 36th right now. It definitely hurt them. A lot of kids knew Chip Kelly was going to leave. Then he came out and said, I'm not leaving. And then 2 weeks later he left. And that kind of hurt their chances with a lot of the West Coast kids.
What about Penn State?
Amazing job. I mean, if you want to look at a team outside the top 25, that is an incredible recruiting job, it's Bill O'Brien. In July, when those sanctions came down, the genius that I am, said, all the kids are going to leave. Penn State's going to go 3-9. The recruits are going to bolt. And I was wrong on every count. And the Penn State fans, they remind me of it every day. It's always fun to hear from them. But, they've got 4 kids. One of them is a 5-star, 3 or 4 stars. There's no way these kids should be going to Penn State after those sanctions. So Bill O'Brien did an amazing job.
What's the talent-rich state right now?
Georgia this year, and usually it's always Florida, Texas, or California, but Georgia this year, and I'm including Reuben Foster, the linebacker, who, by the way, committed to Alabama last night. He had originally been committed to Alabama, flipped to Auburn, got a big Auburn tattoo on his forearm, then flipped back to Alabama. And we're going to wait to see what happens on Wednesday, because I know this is one where Nick Saban's going to be holding his breath around the fax machine tomorrow to make sure that letter comes in. But he's plays in Alabama, but he's from Georgia. And you got Robert Kimdichie, Montravius Adams on belt. We got a ton of talented kids in Georgia. So this year it's Georgia, but that's not going to happen every year.
When you commit, is it by email, fax? How do you do it officially?
Officially, it's usually fax. You sign your letter at your school and you fax it off. Some kids who are less, publicized and valued don't have signing day ceremonies, and they FedEx their letters. But generally tomorrow, the fax machines will be buzzing. And, if you had a webcam in front of that fax machine, and I've actually seen schools set up a webcam in front of the fax machine, which is kind of cool. You see coaches hovering around that thing like it's you got some mystical, magical power. So tomorrow, whoever invented the fax machine, and I still don't know how fax machines work. I mean, how does that work? But the fax machine is going to be a very popular item tomorrow, and then Thursday it'll go back to just being a fax machine.
Can you imagine if Coach walks by and there's no paper in the fax machine?
Someone's getting fired if that happens, I'm telling you. You know what? Whoever's in charge of the fax machine at the college football offices tomorrow he's sweating it out tonight.
Before I let you go, Mike, the ability to be able to swoop in 11th hour, are there staffs? Are there guys who are really good at being able to steal recruits 11th hour? Is it head coaches, or is it somebody who's been courting a kid for a couple of years, the assistant coaches?
It's head coaches because they're the closers down the stretch. Urban Meyer's the best at that. He's if you want to nickname him something, you can nickname him Flipper because he flips kids like crazy. Anybody can do it, though. Alabama, they can do it. They do it a little differently. But the flips this year, the decommitments, recommitments, it's been a little ridiculous and out of control. So I think every staff has at least had one decommitment and one kid who's probably flipped from another school to them.
Well, I had heard this from somebody at USC who said I was wrong in these kids who were decommitting from USC. They were having a hard time getting a defensive coordinator because, maybe that defensive coordinator was looking at Lane Kiffin and saying, he could be one more year, and then if he gets fired, I don't want to take that job. Any validity to that from the recruit aspect of it, that they're decommitting because they're not really seeing stability there at USC?
I fully agree with that, 100%. I think, there's Lane Kiffin's on the hot seat, and the reason he's on the hot seat is because he's, replaced Pete Carroll, and it's USC football, and they were supposed to be number one, and Matt Barkley was supposed to win the Heisman, and none of that happened, and expectations are high there, despite the sanctions. Again, he's working with limitations. He's working with a limited roster. He's working with scholarship reductions, but the fact that their season went so poorly this year puts him on the hot seat, and I think that scared some kids away. And he did delay in hiring a defensive coordinator. I think he waited a little too long, so that could have hurt him as well. Good stuff, Mike. I'll talk to you later in the week. All right, Dan. Thanks. Mike Farrell, Rivals.com.